everyone, Kelly here, and today I wanted to share with you my most recent reads. And it turned out that I had done a bunch of reading in the last week, so I ended up with a ton of books to review, and I just don't like to review more than like 6 or 7 books in a video because I like to be able to talk about them in more in depth. So you'll see 2 recent reads videos for me in a row. I'll do one today and then one will go up on Friday, and I'll be wearing the exact same outfit, but I'm just splitting it in 2 so they'll be a little bit shorter. So this one I'm going to talk about 6 books, and then on Fridays I'll talk about 7 books. And this time the way I'm going to do it, I'm going to do them just in the order of how I read them because I'm splitting this video in 2. So these are the books I read starting kind of at the end of March. So the last book I read into March into the books I've read so far in April. So the first one was Tell Me 3 Things by Julie Buxbaum. This was a reread for me, and the reason I wanted to reread this was because this was right after coronavirus hit the United States, and I just really needed a relaxing book that I already knew was gonna be a happy ending, that I knew I was gonna like, and so I picked this one up and read it in a couple days, and it just helped brighten my mood. And this is just a YA romance that I just love. It's a fluff, nice book. It's a letter writing trope book, and it's one of my favorite romance tropes where 2 people are writing anonymously and they don't know who they're writing to and kind of develop a friendship into relationship online. And I really love that trope. So this book is about Jessie, who is a high school girl who her mother had recently passed away. I think had been only a year or so, and her father remarries and moves her with him to live with his new wife in California. And I think they originally lived in Chicago, maybe. So it's quite a big move for her. And so she's getting acclimated to this new school, new town, grieving over the loss of her mother, all that. And somebody anonymously starts emailing her from the school saying, hey, I'll be your guide to help you kind of know who you should become friends with, who you should avoid, and kind of help you assimilate into this school. And so they develop this online friendship, but she doesn't know who she's writing to. And then we also meet the people that she is getting to be friends with at her school. And we also deal with her relationship with her stepmother and stepbrother and all that. And I just really love this book. It's a 5-star for me because the romance is cute, the letter writing is cute, and then it also has deeper issues of her dealing with grief, and then also the step family situation of her dealing with that, and the relationship she develops with her stepbrother. I really enjoy their dynamic and how their relationship changes throughout the book, and there's a lot of friendship stuff. And so yeah, I just think there's a lot of bigger issues going on in this book other than just the romance, and all of it was good and all of it I loved. So I would recommend this if you like a fluffy book but that still has some maybe deeper issues that you would like to read, but it's still a positive overall thing in this time of uncertainty. And then I moved on to another reread because I've been doing a lot of rereads. I would say a few of these are rereads. I reread The Host by Stephanie Meyer, and I read this with Cara from the Wilde Book Garden. We did a buddy read. This was the first time she had read it. She'd seen the movie but not read the book, and this is probably my 3rd time reading the book, but I hadn't read it for 10 years at least, so I didn't know how it would hold up, but I still really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. This is just a fun read for me. I am not a huge Twilight fan. I liked the first book, Twilight, but then I didn't really care for books 2 through 4. And this one, I just enjoy overall. I'm sure there's probably some issues with the writing and stuff like that, but I still had a really good time. I won't give it a full 5 stars because it's a very large book that doesn't need to be this large. There's a whole section in the beginning that's kind of boring until the action starts. So if it had been cut down, it might be a 5 stars for me because I really enjoy it. And if you don't know, this is a sci-fi book about where in the future the world is taken over by these parasitical aliens. So they're aliens that can only live if they take over a host body, and so they take over all the human bodies, and then there's little pockets of humans hiding out, and we are following a human that was part of this little pocket of humans hiding, but then she gets taken and gets a parasite alien, and so we are actually following both her perspective and the alien that's in her head, and so they're talking to each other in her head and kind of seeing from both sides. And yeah, I really enjoy this. I love one of the romances that shows up in this book, but I don't want to say who it is because that could spoil you if you're reading it for the first time. But I love the romance. It's probably one of my favorite romances of all time in a book. And yeah, I just had a great time reading this with Cara and discussing it, and it really helped lighten my mood. Once again, during these times of uncertainty, rereads are amazing. And then I did move on to reading one of my books that was on my scratch off. So every month I have a scratch off board, and I scratch off 2 books from that are books that I don't know much about. They were cover buys or author buys. And this was one of them for April, and this is The Perfect Stranger by Megan Miranda. I picked this up in a used bookstore because I've heard of Megan Miranda and knew she does mystery novels for both YA and adult. This is an adult one, and I just wanted to try her out because I like thrillers and mysteries. And well, I did not really love this. I might try another Megan Miranda, but this one I only gave a 3 stars. I just didn't find it all that interesting. And actually, like, it's been a couple weeks and I'm trying to remember exactly what happened in this book. But it's about a woman whose career has kind of exploded and she has to leave. So she's starting over in this new town as a teacher of journalism. Like, she used to be a journalist, but then things went wrong. And so now she's teaching journalism in a school. And so she's starting this new life in a small town, and just like a bunch of things start happening at once. There's a man in town that's accused of assaulting a woman that looks just like our main character. There's also her roommate has gone missing. And so we're dealing with all these things that are kind of seem to be revolved around her, and her dealing with them and trying to figure them out. She kind of pairs up with a local cop to kind of figure out, help solve what's going on with all these related incidences. Yeah, I just didn't really love it. I didn't like that there was like a romance built in this. I just don't like romance built into thrillers because it just, I don't know, it just seems like doesn't really fit with the thriller mood. And this book just didn't really interest me that much. There's a lot of times when I just wanted to put it down and got bored with it, but I really wanted to like make it through a Megan Miranda book. But yeah, this is probably not the one. So I might try her really famous one, All the Missing Girls, or if you have one you've read that you really enjoy. But this one was just average and didn't really compel me to want to continue reading this author. Next, I read a couple more YA romances because I just wanted that light feeling. And so I tried the newest Casey West book, which is Moment of Truth. And I got this one on audio because my library had it. And it's just like, I'm not gonna buy it new, and I couldn't get the new copy from the library, so might as well pick up the audiobook. And I do really like Casey West's books on audio because, you know, you can have them in the background. You don't have to like concentrate too much because they're simplistic. And this one, I don't know, I feel like her quality of books lately has gone down. I haven't liked the last couple of her books. They've just been kind of boring. This one also was just a 3 stars for me. It was fine. There was nothing like necessarily wrong with it, but it wasn't like really that compelling. Like, I feel like some of her earlier books were more interesting and had more going on other than just the romance. And this one, we're following a girl named Hadley who is really into swimming and like kind of she wants to go to college based off her swimming and things like that. So she's like really devoted to that. And she's kind of like one of those type A personalities of like needing to accomplish certain things. And then her swim meet gets interrupted by this like prankster, this guy dressed up in a mask. And so she wants to find out who's behind the mask. So she finds an email address for this guy and starts like bothering him, trying to say, you know, you can't show up at people's you know, big moments and ruin them. And she starts following him around as he's, you know, showing up at all these events and stuff like that. So it's kind of a weird premise of this person in a mask and her having like an online letter writing kind of relationship, which, like I said, I love that trope, but in this one it didn't really necessarily work for me. It like just wasn't like as cute. The romance was fine. Like, there wasn't like anything amazing about the romance. Like, it didn't give me butterflies or anything, but it wasn't like horrible. Like, I didn't dislike the main character or the love interest. I just found this one kind of boring because there wasn't much to the plot other than her discovering this person's identity and like figuring out what, like, even like her swimming and her future thing wasn't like a big part of the book. I don't know. It was just 3 stars. I just am not loving Casey West lately. Maybe I should just stop reading her new stuff and just reread her original novels from a while ago. And then next I picked up another YA romance because I had this one out from the library and I want to get through my library books before it opens again. This is The Upside of Falling by Alex Light, and this is a new book. It just came out in February. And this one, sadly, was even worse. This was a 2-star for me. And I know some people would be like, well, these books aren't meant for your age group. Maybe that's why you're reading them low. But like, this is a YA romance and I loved it. This I just think was a boring book. Like, I don't think it had to do with my age. I just think it was not that interesting. And if you look at the reviews, a lot of people say that. And I just don't even remember what this book was about. We did follow 2 perspectives. We follow both the guy and the girl. And it's a fake dating. That's why I picked this up, because it's a, this girl like gets kind of called out by her old friend for not having a relationship. So she says she is in a relationship. This guy overhears her say that and pretends to be her boyfriend in the moment. And then they decide to keep the fake dating happening. And then like any fake dating, you know what's gonna happen. But this one just, there was nothing interesting about these 2 main characters. Like this is very similar in tone to All the Boys I've Loved Before, but at least those characters had something. Like we had some, background of the, I can't think of what the girl's name is in To All the Boys I Loved Before, but like there's background about her family and her culture and things like that. And then we get to know the male character, where this one, I don't feel like I know anything about these 2 characters. I don't even remember their names or anything. Not one single distinguishing factor about these 2 personalities. And I read it 2 weeks ago. So that shows I don't think anything really stood out in their relationship. They didn't have much chemistry. I only finished this book because it was really short. I mean, it's only like 270 pages. If it had been any longer, I probably would have DNF'd it because it just wasn't that interesting. So I wouldn't recommend it if you're looking for a cute, fluffy romance. I would say pick this one up or other books by Julie Buxbaum and just forget that one because it wasn't that good. And then the last book I want to talk about is The Stolen Kingdom by Bethany Adazada. And this one, I learned about this one in kind of a different way than most people. I do some audiobook editing for an audiobook narrator, and this is one of the books I was working on. So I read it because I was like helping to create the audiobook. So the audiobook will be coming out soon, and I think the audiobook was great. And then the book itself was a lot of fun. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book. It's a fast read and it's a lot of fun. If you like fairy tale or like other retellings, this would be great. This is the beginning of a series that are companion novels. So some of the characters, it looks like, will continue to show up in other novels, but each novel has a new main character, and they are retellings of like Disney kind of classic movies. So this one is an Aladdin retelling. The second one is a Little Mermaid retelling. I don't remember what the third one is. And there's gonna be 4 books total. The 4th book will be coming out later this year. So if you wanna like binge read a series, I think the last one comes out in the fall. So you would be able to read them all in a row. The only one with an audiobook coming out soon is this first one, but they're all on ebook. You could get from on your Kindle or whatever. And this was just a fun little retelling. It doesn't really follow Aladdin exactly. We're following this princess who has this magical man who is trying to force her into marriage. So that's kind of like the Jafar character. And so she runs away and she meets a young man who is kind of like the Aladdin character. And then they also meet a genie. So that's like the genie. And, she is trying to save her kingdom that has been taken over by this man who has the magic of persuasion. And there's a lot about the gifts of the genies, and it's just a really fun, interesting story. It doesn't end in a super cliche way. Like, how sometimes retellings can just like, you know exactly how it's going to end and there's no like mystery. I felt this one surprised me in the end, and made me want to continue the series because it doesn't end like in a perfectly neat, happy, fairy tale package way. And so I'm interested to continue the series, and I'll probably just read all of them on ebook since the last one will be coming out later this year. So I would recommend it if you are a fan of retellings, and especially kind of like Disney type story retellings. And so that's it for this first section of my recent reads. If you've read any of these or want to discuss any books you've read recently, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Thanks, bye.